Tonight, thanks so much for coming. This fabulous exhibition, I know, like hanging it the last 2 days, it's been a pleasure just looking at some of these beautiful shots, and it's lovely that it was all done here and by people locally, so that's fabulous, guys, and I think full bus for everyone involved. Just so you know, there's 2 events on this evening. So we have the launch here now, and then we'll have tea, coffee, sandwiches downstairs, and there's the Community Futures launch in the auditorium at 8 o'clock. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Margaret.
Okay, thanks, John. So, ar dús bhailm fáilte parmh gan duine an seo ó ar son baile slachtar Belmullet, táid Harvest leis an Chaspántas jazz seo. It's all about the bees and the seas. And I suppose, first of all, I want to thank our partners, SciCap, the Social Inclusion and Community Activation Programme. They're under Mayo North East, and Anne is here tonight to represent them. So thank you very much for partnering with us and providing the funding for the printing of all of the shots here. The exhibition, I suppose I should say how it came about. It came about as a result of our winning the National Together for Biodiversity Award in February. So as we were putting together the application for that award, we were coming across all the pictures that John and Mary had done over the last number of years, not just this year. And we thought it was such a shame that they were all kept secret, apart from the applications that we used them in. So at the National Biodiversity Conference, there was an exhibition up, and I thought, well, that might be an idea for something we could do with the photographs, and I'm delighted that we did, because it's turned out really well, and they are too good to keep secret. So I suppose in relation to that, for some time, Slachtar Belmullet have been working on biodiversity. Probably the last 10 years, we started with storyboards on the shore wall with the seabirds along Shore Road. And then more recently, we have taken up the Corncraig tours, done in conjunction with Ballycroy National Park, and they've been a big success. People have been delighted every year to hear the sound of the Corncraig. And then more recently, I suppose, our work with Peter Gill, who introduced us, I think Peter's here tonight as well, who introduced us to the great yellow bumblebee, for which we're very grateful. And we've become more aware, I suppose, of the need for pollinators and the need to protect areas within the town for pollination, and throughout the peninsula as well. So we were looking at what tiny towns could do in relation to pollination. And last year we engaged with Karina Jakerkus, I think I see Karina's there. We did a lovely training programme on Leave No Trace and biodiversity, and Karina was able to take us around and point out the huge number of things that we're walking past every day that we don't actually see. So that was a real eye-opening experience for us. So again, something that we are keen to share with the rest of the community. So I suppose I should at this point say thank you to our photographers. Thank you very much to Mary Keenan and to John Riley. Where's John? John's over here. Our tiny towns. A treasure trove of photographs, and we're delighted that they're sharing them with Tidy Towns and with all of us here tonight. I also want to thank Nuala Irwin, who did the printing for us and who had such great patience with our requests. And I think Nuala left about 20 minutes before you all arrived. So thanks to Nuala. She might be back in again already. And a special thanks, I suppose, to the staff here at Finish Flora for all their help in hanging and also in the audio recordings that Tony has put together some audio clips of the endangered species that we have in the area in terms of the bird life, and you'll hear some bees, and that's going to be running all the time while the exhibition is on here during the day. It's a bit difficult to hear it tonight because of all the chatter that's going on, but if you get a chance to come in during the day, while for the next month it's on until 12th of August, do that, and the audio will be running there. And one clip that we included in the audio also was the sound of children, again all local. The pictures are all local. A lot of the audio clips are local, and in particular the sound of children playing, because like the bees and the birds, in many communities and in villages around the place, children are seldom heard laughing and playing outside anymore. So we're also in danger, so I think we need to be cognizant of that. So let me see. So thanks to all our Tidy Town staff and our Tidy Towns committee who indulge my madness. I've been told no more. No, for a while anyhow. Yeah, just for a while. So, just to give you a flavour, I suppose, of the kind of things that we've done in terms of the biodiversity, what we did is we have mapped this year 8 areas within town as areas that we've set aside for biodiversity. And then we were introduced to Niamh. Niamh Phelan is here as well. Where's Niamh? Yeah, Niamh is our master's student from UCD, and Niamh's thesis is going to be on the great yellow bumblebee. So with Niamh's experience, we mapped 2 additional areas. So now we have 10 areas for pollination in the town that we have mapped and that we will be managing through Tidy Towns. Some areas will be left as wild meadow, some areas will get 5 cuts per year. We have we had previously planted a herb garden, we've that done for some time, that's coming along nicely. And we had previously planted some wildlife gardens. And I suppose the thing about biodiversity is it doesn't happen overnight, it takes a long time. So the area at the front that we planted with wildflower seeds about 4 years ago, Catherine, this year has bore fruit, and it actually looks like a wildflower meadow. So it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time and it takes a little bit of effort, but it will reward you if you put in the effort. The other thing I should say about Niamh's work is that it's an opportunity for research to influence practice. So what will happen when Niamh has done her thesis is that when she has identified what the great yellow bumblebee likes in particular to feed on, the types of habitat, some of that work is already done, but Niamh will add to that body of work, and we will take that and use that in our efforts to promote those sort of habitats within the town and within the peninsula itself. We'll also be running more training courses, so look out for those during the winter. You'll all be very welcome to come and join us and Corina in doing some more biodiversity training. We hope to have training workshops geared specifically to gardeners, to farmers, to school children, to a wide variety of audiences, so that everybody gets a chance to engage with it. So I suppose now to Dave. So during the last number of years, we've also been really lucky to have the expertise of Dave Sotheby. Dave works with Birdwatch Ireland, and I suppose we're really privileged to be in a room where we have so much expertise, and by all means draw on that expertise tonight and ask lots of questions. They'll be delighted to answer them. So I should say, I suppose, what Dave doesn't know about the birds and the bees isn't worth knowing. So he was the ideal person we thought of to get to launch this biodiversity exhibition, and he also very kindly managed to fill in a number of blanks that we had in relation to, we were finding it very hard to get a local, the pictures as I said are all local, so we were finding it very hard to get a local corncrake and indeed a great yellow bumblebee. So there were some areas that we needed to plug, and Dave very kindly plugged those areas for us. So you'll see some of Dave's pictures on the wall as well. So I'm going to hand you over to Dave, and he's going to say a few words and launch the exhibition. So, Míle buíochas.
Very much. Good evening, everyone. Quite sure what else to say, really. Anyway, yeah, I'm quite inspired, actually, coming into this room and seeing all these photographs. I came into Belmullet 18 years ago, and I thought I was the only one that looked at the birds and the bees. And all these years later, it is really inspiring to see all the work that's going on. I'm not going to talk long and about every photograph and all the birds and all the species that are involved, but just to pick up on something that Margaret said in terms of it takes time, 4 years for the clover field there to come into flower, you know. I just want to use the example of how Birdwatch Island have this long association with the peninsula, and use the example of a bird, quite an amazing little bird, which is on the back board there, and the top middle. And it's a little bird called the red-necked phalarope. It's an amazing little bird. Spends 10 months of the year at sea. Most of that time is spent off the Peruvian coast in the Pacific Ocean. It comes back to land on this side of the Atlantic to breed, and it's on land for about 2 months. This little amazing bird was found out here on the Mullet Peninsula in the early 1900s, breeding in a small marsh out towards Anna Head. And to ensure its safety and reduce any disturbance, the carnage owners out there agreed to transfer the ownership of the marsh across to what was an organisation called the Irish Society for Protection of Birds, trustees of that, which is now developed into Birdwatch Island. That was in the 1930s. The first job that they did there to secure and safeguard these was put a fence around this marsh. Ultimately, that was to the demise of the bird. They require open water, land intake off. And because the marsh had been fenced off, the grazing animals couldn't get down, the water closed in, and the last recorded breeding phalaropes there was in the early 1980s. Research, as has been taking place, like with the great yellow bumblebee, up in the North Scotland, looked at these marsh systems and looked at this bird to see what they wanted. And Birdwatch Island, in the end of the 1990s, took that information and were looking to see if they could restore the marsh out there at Anna for this little bird. Working with the local farmers, contractors, volunteers, we implemented that management, put in what we perceived to be the ideal conditions that this bird wanted, and waited. And this is what happens with wild. It's great management, it's very inspiring, but it takes time. And thankfully, to this day, they have returned. They are now back there, and it is the most southerly, most regular site anywhere in the world that they breed. And it's out here on the peninsula. So it took 30 years for them to come back. The management is there, they've been there for the last 5 years. So managing areas for wildlife does take time, takes patience, and it's really inspiring and really encouraging when it does happen. Although we're just managing for one species, it does have benefits for other species. Lapwing, for instance, in this photograph there at the top there. An iconic farmland bird, used to be widespread, nationally declined all over the place, but they are there at Anna Marsh. So species like that. And there, when I first came to the Mullet Peninsula, I got a message from somebody in the UK, simply sort of saying, have you got Bombus distinguendus? What? I had no idea what he was on about. Sent back an email to sort of say, what are you talking about? I have no idea. So it's called the Great Yellow Bumblebee. I left the office in Belmullet and I went to Anna at lunch break. He sent me a photograph of what I should be looking for. I went to the marsh there, looked amongst the clovers, and at lunchtime I found this bee, which I thought, oh, that looks like what the photograph is. Took a photograph of it, and that is the photograph above there. On the top right there, that's the Great Yellow Bumblebee. Sent it back to the guy in the UK, and he sort of said, yep, that is the bee. It's an incredibly rare bee. We are fortunate here. It's been lost from a lot of island. It's right out on this western edge now, and here out on the Mullet Peninsula, we've discovered that it is, well, it's the healthiest population for this bee anywhere in Ireland. The work that we've done, we've found it in various places, but we don't really know much about it. You know, we don't know what it needs. We don't know how far the bee, when it leaves the nest, how far it flies to go get its food. How much food it needs. We have no idea. Where do the queens, they sleep, they hibernate over the winter. We don't know where they go. Where do they go? So it is really encouraging to see work now being done, research being coming here to find out what is actually happening. And it's encouraging also to see that the Belmullet Tidy Towns Group are looking to try and get that established here in the town. And just looking out the window there, seeing areas left uncut. Because one thing we do know is that they need flowers, a food source of flowers, particularly red clovers and knapweeds, throughout the whole summer. And it's encouraging to look at and see these areas being left unmown. And driving down the peninsula, I always think it's a joy at this time of year that you don't see the roadside verges cut. You go to a lot of areas, although it is improved, where these roadside verges will be cut bare. Driving down the peninsula, joy. There's clovers, there's knapweeds, there's all this bee food all the way along. And thank you, Peter, Mayo County Council, everyone who's involved in it, for leaving them uncut, and hopefully that will continue. But the research that is found from this, the Great Elbump Bee research, implementing that with what we already know, will be important for establishing it. And I think, you know, the work that has been done is encouraging, and I'm sure, given time, patience, you will all be rewarded. And so all I'd like to say, other than that, is thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the exhibition. I find it very inspiring, I'm sure. And I hope others do, everyone in this room and others that come to see it, and on its travels, because I believe it's going on its travels elsewhere. So thank you very much.